Welcome to Fated, a podcast brought to you by Majella and Carlie, two romantasy-obsessed readers who believe that great books must include declarations of undying love and deep thrusts of desire. Diving into the spicy, smutty fantasy genre, we are here for both the rattling of stars and headboards, and our podcast starts with the worlds of SJM, but delves into other realms. Did we mention that washboard abs and wands of all kinds are welcome in this inclusive and magically charged space? No topic is off limits, and no one is forced to have only one favourite heroine. Welcome to Fated, where we are unabashedly and wholeheartedly hot and heavy for spicy fantasy fiction. It's time to sit down and smut up. Warning, spoilers ahead.
Welcome to Fated. My name's Carlie.
And we are here to discuss theories, the theories of stories in this episode. I feel like I said that in a very vague way. What does that mean? We are here to discuss the theories that people come up with about what's going to happen in the next book of their favorite series. Because right now, Crescent City 3 has just been released. And so previously to that release, we have had months of people speculating about what is going to happen in this book. You know, are there new characters? Are they going to bring back old characters? What kind of plot developments? And when people are creating these theories, it is quite extraordinary how much they put into it. And so Carlie and I wanted to discuss what we actually think about theories as part of our reader experience, because not everyone wants to know what's coming up in their next book or potentially what might be coming up. And yet other people love the idea of, you know, picking out little Easter eggs or foreshadowing or clues and then putting together, you know, spreadsheets and flowcharts and those kind of things. So we wanted to talk about what kind of impact that has on our reader experience. Are we into it? Do we enjoy it? Do we avoid them? And what we think, what we're seeing out in the book talk world about what other people might be thinking and experiencing about theories. But before we get into that, Carlie, let's talk about what we're reading this week.
What we're reading this week. Still in the Tandem read. But I'm almost finished an audiobook that I've been listening to, which is called The Things We Leave Unfinished by Rebecca Yarros of Fourth Wing fame. So this is a historical romance of hers that I've been listening to whilst I've been out on my runs and walks and cooking and doing all that sort of stuff. So I'm nearly finished that. Really cool to hear her voice in a different kind of genre. I mean, still got the romance element, but historical fiction. So that's been fun. What about you? Are you done? Have you finished?
I just finished Crescent City 3, which I think is perfect timing actually to talk about these theories, because the theory idea originated because I've never experienced so many videos about theories as we have had about Crescent City 3. I mean, there was a lot about Iron Flame, but I feel like coming into this release, it was insane. But I finished that, and I have already gone back to the book series that I was reading before this came out, which is the Carissa Broadbent series is called The War of the Lost Hearts, and I'm reading book 2, which is Children of the Fallen Gods.
Okay.
And I really like it.
Children of Fallen Gods by Carissa Broadbent.
Yes. And it is great. And I'm really into it. And I'm loving it. I picked up straight back after Crescent City 3. So I feel like they're quite similar in the type of worlds they're in and what's happening with, you know, wars and epic battles and righting the wrongs of the world. So it was actually a really seamless transition. If I could have picked anything to go into, I feel like it feels like she could be in that series.
That's awesome. I think it needs to be said that at the time of recording this episode and you declaring that you finished Crescent City 3, it's been out for 72 hours-ish, and it's 800 pages. I picked it up today in a bookshop and I was like, holy heck, this, I don't think Majella realizes how big this book is because you've read it on Kindle. It is a hefty ass book. And I nearly bought it and I didn't because it's a large copy. And my other, like 1 and 2 others, I've got the smaller kind of paperbacks and I really want a matching set. But just bravo. To read that many pages in 3 days is just epic. Well done. It's amazing.
Oh, thank
Very
you.
admirable.
But I don't. It's so funny. I don't. I don't like the glorification of reading fast. It's just
No.
that that's how I consume books. Is that I'm in the
That's
world,
I do not.
sacrificing other things, like living, functioning as a living adult.
That's what I like about
living
you
as a
and I.
functional adult.
We read differently and we still enjoy it. So that's great. It's just so cool to see people who've just dived right in and just absorbed it. Because it has, like, let's talk about theories as well. It has been, 18 months or something since book 2 was released. Is that right? So there's been some
I
time.
don't know because, yeah, I didn't, because I think, we both kind of came into this room and to see World fairly recently over, 1 to 2 years. I think that I'm not sure when 1 or 2 came out.
I'll look it up. But there's been a significant amount of time for people to really think about it, right? And really dive in there if they wanted to.
Yes. Exactly. And I think it was due for, we're kind of in a bit of a big book lull. We haven't got anything else big, that's kind of competing with it. So I think that also added to it as well.
It's really interesting you say that because I saw a TikTok. Someone was actually saying, these are all the other books that were released on this date alongside Crescent City 3 that have had no applause or no one's noticed. Just no one's noticed. And I was like, okay, I'm going to write some of those books down and go and support those authors at some point. Because can you imagine releasing your book on the same date? It would have been very daunting.
Yeah, you can't. Yeah. And surely they would know not to do that. That feels like a poor marketing choice. But anyway, theories. Okay, let's discuss it. So what I think about theories is that the people fall into 3 categories. And by the people, I mean us, the readers, you, the readers. There is the first group of people who love theories, who live for theories, who did theories before book talk, before anything. They were just doing it by themselves at home. They'd read the book, they'd put in tabs, they'd take notes, they'd remember lines, they'd go back, they'd think about it, they'd be lying in bed at night, trying to put the pieces together, being like, where is this book going to go? And now that they have a forum such as Instagram or TikTok, YouTube or book clubs, these people have risen to prominence because they are like a dog with a bone, I think. They're in their zone, they're in their element. It's just how their brain works, and they get such pleasure from doing this that it's infectious. Then you have the second group of people who are the people who, they don't necessarily think of the theories by themselves, or they're interested in what's happening because they like the fact that by knowing theories, it helps them understand the books better themselves and also helps them get prepped, going in for the next installment, what might actually happen. It's almost this, okay, if I've listened to some theories and potentially there's going to be a main character death in the close circle, or this is going to happen, they're almost a little bit more mentally prepared. And I think then there's the third group of people who are very anti-theories, who don't want to know what's happening, who don't want to think about things in complex ways, who don't want to comb back through books and look at different things. They just want to be in the world, experience the story as it unfolds for them at whatever pace they're reading. So they're the people that are, avoiding all these videos at the moment, and probably furiously scrolling every time they see a, House of Flame and Shadow spoilers or theories. Or so that's my take on where people sit in the theory sort of approach, I guess. Where do you sit in those groups?
Okay, so my immediate, where would I put myself in those buckets of people? My immediate response was, don't really care for really going deep into theories about what's going to happen. Like to stay really present in the now moment. I never seem to come up with for theories. Like, I do see what people share. Like before, in particular, when we were waiting for Iron Flame to come out, I was like, wow, how are people making these connections? People are so smart. Why didn't my brain even contemplate that? So that's my first reaction. But then when I was thinking as you were talking, I was like, but I actually like really do love the chatter or the conversation that I have. For me personally, it's more in conversation with you or with some other friends that are reading the same series. Or if I was in a book club, I'd really, really love that conversation of what do you think is going to happen to these characters? Where's this story going to go? But up until now, I think that where I've been at in my journeys, I have been really behind, as in I am still reading massive series that are very popular where everyone's many books ahead. And so I've really avoided listening to anything at all about what's happening. So I kind of, yeah, I kind of think I fall between. I'm definitely not a graph and like whiteboarding things and overanalyzing and rereading 600 times and overly tabbing things. That's not me. Who knows? Maybe if this becomes my full-time gig, that might become me. But my brain is so simple. It likes to stay in the now moment. I was wondering as well, like, is this really unique to fantasy? Because our fantasy authors are so brilliant at foreshadowing and creating these really long series. Is this unique? I was thinking, do we see the same thing really in any other genre? That's just a question I want to ponder to you and to the audience as well. So I know I waffled then, but that's my answer about theories. I don't know. I don't get into it. I ignore them. I avoid them as much as possible. But I can see the allure of wanting to have that conversation. Yeah? And I think you've shifted a little bit, haven't you? You were like, oh yeah, I really don't mind them. I really like the conversation around them. And then you had a bit of a shift before Crescent City 3. So how's your experience been having now read this book?
I was thinking about this too. I think it's not necessarily a set shift, a concrete shift. I think actually what happens is I see a certain number of theories and then it's almost like my theory cup is full. As I've seen a few people, it gives me some ideas. I think, oh, that's interesting. Oh, I wonder if that could happen. Yes. But I also think that the more you watch, and especially certain people, when they do their theories, they're so involved. And even though we have no idea what's happening, it sounds so plausible that I notice that I almost start to assume that that's what's going to happen, or almost create this sort of attachment to that being the upcoming plot and being like, oh, well, that's so obvious, I think, now that I've heard it from multiple people and there's like this line from this chapter in this book, well, that's clear. That's definitely happening. So I think that when I get to a point where I start to hear the same theories, or I start to go to feel like I'm starting to become attached to the theory as instead of being possibility, it becomes probability. That's when I've started to draw back, because I think I experienced the same thing before Iron Flame, where there was just so many, and I was starting to be like, oh my god, like this says about Violet and Zayden's going to have this and this, and that all seems true. And then I think, well, if that actually happens, have I just ruined the book for myself as well? Like, am I just going to be like, oh yes, because I didn't come up with the theory, so I don't think there's going to be this sense of pride and kind of this feeling of, yes, I knew I was right. It's just going to be like, oh, well, that girl that I watched, she was right. So I do feel like I drew back off Crescent City. And I did, just before I jumped on here and we started recording, I said to you, I've just finished Crescent City 3 and I really enjoyed it. I found it, such a good read. And I don't want to do any spoilers because obviously it's so close to release date and we haven't discussed the Crescent City series at all. So no spoilers. I just really enjoyed it. I really, but there has been the opposite sentiment on TikTok at the moment that I've noticed, because obviously now I've read it, I can go and watch all the videos of reviews and people talking about spoilers and all that kind of stuff. And a lot of people do not feel the same way that I do about the book for various reasons, which I will not go into. But I had this thought of, I wonder if it's because the book did not adhere to many of those theories that have been
Yeah.
floating around. So that all these people who were going in thinking, I know it's going to happen, or I've guessed the next stage, or I've listened to this book talker and she said this, and it's almost like they've gone in with those preconceived ideas of where the characters should be going. So it's almost this entitlement about the journey of these characters. And of course, if you go in with that energy and it doesn't go to plan, you're going to be disgruntled and disappointed and frustrated, especially if you think that the other way was better. Like, you're like, that was such a better character arc. Oh my God, why didn't she use this trope? How come this character wasn't revealed? So,
Mm.
the only thing I want to say about it is, which didn't bother me at all, is that, which ties in with the theories, is just so many things that people thought were going to be explored and potentially even have like loopholes closed, or um, sort of mystery things, like mystery threads. I think a lot of people thought a lot of those were going to be tied off. I could see how, if you didn't get that, that um, that could cause you to not enjoy the book. Whereas I feel like, because I was like, oh, theories, interesting. Who knows what's going to happen? I will stop watching theories now. And also, sometimes those theories are so in depth that I can't even remember the details of the theories. Like, I might be like, oh, I remember that character. She thinks this is going to happen. But I can't remember all the houses and the lineage and the fact that this person wore a hat of this color and that's going to appear in the fourth book, because, it gets insane. I didn't have that experience. I just read it and went, ooh, oh,
Yeah.
cried, laughed, just, and got to the end and was like,
That was
loved
great.
it,
That was
Um,
so there's so many things I want to pull out of that. The expectation part. I wonder if for so many people there was such a long time between these installments to, as you say, listen to the theories, create your own, really almost map out the next book in your own mind, to go into reading that with such expectations. I'm not sure that any author could deliver that for everybody in their fandom. Expectations is huge, and I think this is a little bit linked to our last episode on reviews and how helpful they are, and who gives 1 and 2 and 3-star reviews. Like, expectation, what did you want from the book, what did you think was going to happen, and did it meet it? That's really interesting. The other thing I was thinking as you were chatting is, I'd really love to actually almost interview somebody who's really into theory, inquiring mind, and that ability to read the foreshadowing and all the clues and create another a narrative pretty much out of thin air for the next installment. It'd be so fascinating to talk to someone about why they do that, because for me, like you said, I just want to stay in the now moment and be swept up by the story. I want to stay in what's being presented to me, rather than have all of these other ideas about how this story is going to progress. And I don't know, does it give people who are really, really into those theories and foreshadowing, does it give them a sense of what? Like control, or, do they not like to be surprised? I don't know. I'm just curious about how their brain works, because I am just the total opposite. Is the fun
yeah, I wonder if
ruined if you constantly analyzing?
I mean, if you enjoy analyzing, then that obviously would be an enjoyable activity for you. And I also think there's such a strong desire, I think, to be able to be part of these worlds. So I think that the same thing with Harry Potter, where it was like people were, they wanted to have wands and magic so much. And I think that these theories kind of allow them to almost feel like they're in this world because they know it so well and they're noticing all the details. Like, I did just watch a video, it was really interesting, that it's almost like the people who have these theories are also the people that derive pleasure from all the tiny details and all the threads of the tapestry coming together in a, like, if you look kind of in a microscopic way. And what I mean by that is there was a part in the book where something was revealed about the lineage of one of the characters, and I felt like there were some really obvious points about that that had been sort of dropped in, but it wasn't a given, but I was like, I could see how that person could be connected to this person. But I just watched this video where this woman was like doing one of those videos where she films her response, and she was responding to this scene and going, oh my God, like this is so emotional for me because like this has happened and this heirloom has appeared on this current day character, and that leads back to this, and how beautiful is that, and blah blah blah. And I remember reading about that heirloom, like I just go, oh yeah, I remember that she had this thing. Like I remember reading the lines and going and noting that this character had that particular heirloom, and that is all I did. I didn't go, oh my God, it means this and that. And so by watching that video, I did get a deeper connection to that scene afterwards. And I went, oh my God, that is even more beautiful, because there was already lots of stuff happening in that scene. But noting that tiny little detail kind of gave it this extra sort of nostalgic flavor on top of it, where I was like, oh, that is really sweet. That is really sweet. And I sort of didn't put, like I noticed it, but I didn't put it all together in a way where it landed emotionally for me. And that could also be because this book is so big and so dense that there was just so many of those details all the way through. And so I think that would be one of the things that I feel like would be a positive for those people who read and pull things out, like the theories, pull things out, like all the details, connect the dots across books, across timelines, across different character arcs, because it does make some things hit home in a much more emotional way. Do I want to read the whole book though, scouring every line for a possible second meaning or a connection to something else? I don't think so. I don't.
Yeah.
I just want to read and kind of almost be washed with the story.
And I think that, I mean, we need all different people in the world. We need our beautiful analyzers and theorists and people that can pull all of those threads together. And then there's, we need us as well, who are just going to be so in it and just allow it to wash over us. But what I realized when you were talking there is I really love the post conversation rather than the pre. So I really want to have these conversations with people after we've both read it and made some other connections for ourselves, or, and talk about it. And then maybe, dip into each other's genius to be like, I didn't notice that, Majella. Yes, that makes sense. But after the fact. That's why I'm so excited for when our book club releases to be able to have those conversations. I think I just really avoid too much of that over analysis before I dive into a book. And I think it's the same for me with movies and TV shows. I'm like, I don't want to know all the things before I actually watch it, because for me, I think that takes away the spontaneity of being exposed to it the first time, feeling it the first time, understanding it for the first time, having my own connections happen for the first time.
Yeah. I just think from what you were saying too, I had a really clear thought of, in a way, it's the same, we're seeking the same, I guess, psychological response, because in the post, like after the book, and we want to talk about all the details, it's so that we feel that we're part of the collective, that other people went through our experience, that we can share our perspective on that experience, that we feel connected and seen and heard. And I think that is what must happen for the theory people as well, when they're like, oh my goodness, guys, like you see me in this world, you also understand, you're also really curious and keen. And so I think they're both a very similar
Yeah.
feeling that we're seeking, but sort of getting it in different ways. Because there is, when you talked about the movie as well, that was a really great example, because I actually love knowing lots about movies, because I think I've watched too many movies where I felt really scared or shocked or saddened, and I found it not enjoyable. And so now I do want to watch the previews. I don't want to just turn up to a film and not know what it's about. Like, I'm like, is it a comedy? Is it a romantic comedy? You know, who's directing it? You know, what's the rating? How many, you know, is this going to be something, you know, is it like a black comedy? Is this, you know, going to be horror? I want to know, and I'm happy to know almost everything except a plot twist. You know, I'm kind of like, will I feel good at the end of this? Will I need to take in like my security blanket? Like, what, you know, I'm happy to even read reviews of the film before I watch it. I don't feel the same way about books, but I
Wow.
think that's also because these books, especially the romantasy genre, it's almost 100% guaranteed that the two main characters will survive. So someone is guaranteed a happily ever after, which must comfort me in some way to know that I can get through this book. Whereas with a movie, because it's funny, because sometimes my partner will be like, let's go see a movie. And I'll be like, what? And he'll be like, he'll tell me the title. And I'll be like, well, what's it about? Who's in it? He's like, don't worry. You'll like, just come along. You'll enjoy it. And I was like, oh my God, no. Like what
I have a
genre? Like
great,
what,
I have
how, what,
a great website that I use before my kids, my children, 12 and 10, go and watch a movie. And it outlines, dark scenes, obviously language and sex and blah, blah, blah. But is it full frontal? Is there, it gives you pretty much the whole movie plot. And I do that before my children go and watch certain movies. So I'm going to give you that website. That will help you, Majella. I was thinking, just a quick funny story. I was laying in bed last night reading Tower of Dawn, and my husband was reading beside me, and he turned around. He's like, what's happening in your book right now? Like, what's happening? And I said, I pretty much described this incredibly gruesome scene, like beheading and blood and gore. And he was just like, oh, I thought this was one of your romance novels. I'm like, oh, it is. But then he looked at me, he goes, Carlie, you won't watch any of that kind of stuff. Like, you won't, any show that has that, you will not watch with me, but yet you can lay in bed and read it and be like, this is the best thing ever. It's like, yeah, that's interesting, isn't it?
do we picture it differently? Like in your mind, you almost like censor the
Yes.
scene.
No.
So you're like, yeah, it's a beheading. But it's like a kind beheading, you know, like there's not a lot of blood. It's
Yeah.
minimal blood in this beheading. You know,
And
like in your mind, you
I do.
censoring it?
It's very much not as visual. So, but he was just like, "What?" I said, "Yeah, I know that makes no sense at all, but that's where we're at." So yes. Anyway, back to the theories. That was a little side tangent. Theories, foreshadowing. I really enjoy foreshadowing. Obviously, that's part of fantasy. That's part of the tapestry of the story. I really enjoy that. But yeah, I'm very much not going to be watching many theories or listening to many theories before I dive into a book. But I love the post chat and picking up on different things that other people have discovered or felt or noticed after the fact. But I just like to experience it myself for the first time. That's where I'm at.
Yeah, I think we're similar. I think we've got a similar approach. I'd love to know what you guys all think, the listeners, about theories. Are you into them? Do you avoid them? Do you find it enhances your reader experience? Because no matter what, whatever you listen to about a book is going to color that reading experience no matter what. Like if you read some reviews, if you don't read any reviews, like either you're going in, more aware or less aware. So it'd be interesting to see, I guess, what the split is.
Mm.
Is it half half? Is there a smaller group of people really into theories, but because they're so passionate and louder, people think that everyone's into theories? But really, the majority of people are like, I just want to know a vague idea of what's happening. But I don't want to know any more than
Yeah.
that.
And I want to just stay in my own imagination about what's going to happen between Violet and Xaden. I just want to stay in my own space with that and not be swept up by other people's thoughts and opinions. Yeah. Love to hear. Would love to hear. And it'll be interesting when our book club is up and running, what kind of people we draw into there and what kind of conversations happen there.
I do think that people gravitate towards other people who enjoy the same reading approach. Like, I think it will be so interesting to see who joins, but I can't imagine people who are seeking out theories. They're not going to find that in our book club. We're not, I mean, I really don't like spreadsheets of any kind, and so there will be no data analysis from my side of things. And I'm much more like, let's talk about this line. What about this scene? What about this character? Oh my God. So it will be interesting to see, and also, how people read in the book club. I was just going to say, I also think the theory people read fast. That's I'm just throwing it out there. I think the people who create theories are fast readers. They're the people who are like, oh, I got that done in 12 hours. And that's so I can now go back and break it down by paragraph.
I did see someone this morning with this House of Flame and Shadow of Flame. I always get it mixed up, sorry. And she's like, yep, read it, and now I'm going to go back and reread, and then I'll annotate, and then I'll do this. She had this whole plan in her head. So I was like, great. She's obviously read it and let it, like, had her experience. And then for her audience, because she was on TikTok, she's going to go back and reread and then share as she goes. I'm like, oh, cool. That's another approach. It's really interesting, though, as well. You have had a lot of theories come across your FYP. I don't. I think I've trained my algorithm because I get rid of them really quick. I actually don't have a lot of those people in my space, which is great at the moment. That's what I'm wanting. And who knows, in our book club, though, we might get people that start little subgroups within that just are like, who are all the theorists? Let's huddle over here in this private little chat group, and have our little conversation and then bring it back to the
right, hiding from the host. We don't want to upset Majella and Carlie with our theories. We'll go over here. We would never be upset. All are welcome. We just won't be adding our own, I don't think.
No, don't join if that's what you're looking for from us. But you can absolutely bring that to the space. All right, my love, that's awesome. Good stuff. Talk to you next episode.
Sounds good. Chat soon.